Well, good morning, everybody. This is just Joe. I'm up here in the mountains of North Carolina, and I'm a little grateful and excited. Um, it took 58 years for me to find my calling, and not to say that this is a calling that anyone would have, or want, but it's a calling and it's mine. And so I do the best that when I can, and God sure is helping me along the way with this. That's for sure. I'm looking for. I had a prayer I wanted to start out with today, and it seems I might have left it on the printer. Maybe or maybe not. Um, Hold on one second. I'm sorry. All right, I'm back. Let's see. It only took me 20 seconds of dead air. All right, so we're going to start today off with a prayer. By the end, I hope you understand who my God is. So this is a prayer of surrender. God, not a name I control, not a statue I polish, but a verb I'm learning to trust. I've tried to run the show. I've worn every mask. I've hustled for worth, hidden my wounds, and called it survival. But I'm tired, God. And in that tiredness, I'm finally willing. So here, take it. Take my story, even the ugly pages. Take my fear, my plans, my fallback schemes. Take the version of me I keep trying to resurrect. I don't want to manage my life anymore. I want to live it. And with you moving through me, I want to wake up inside a life that I didn't script. I didn't want to love without needing to be impressive. I want to breathe without the fear of being seen. So I raise my hands, not in defeat, but in trust, not to be punished, but to be held. I surrender, not because I have to, but because I want to. Because peace doesn't come from control, it comes from you, the living motion, you, the verb. Amen. Uh, Cheers and good morning to all of you damaged little boys like me. Free range. All right. Um, it was exciting this week. I got invigorated to finish my book. What Now, which is a book for how to survive being a sex offender. And as I was going into jail to meet this new guy, it just recalled so many things that I had forgotten. I mean, I was able to add 4 new chapters to the book just and actually I think I have 1 or 2 more. Um, and so just the inspiration of working with you men and creating this, right? This is not my work, this is our work. And I just seem to be the one stupid enough or brave enough or whatever the hell you want to call it to get up here and talk about it. I don't have a degree, right? I mean, it's easier when you have a degree and you can talk behind some abbreviations and some acronyms. But no, when this shit happened to you, man, it's a little bit different. Um, so I wanted to share with you. I wrote it down. It makes it a little bit easier. How and why this started, right? This started back in November of 2011. Actually, it probably started back when I was a teenager, but it really took hold. The hook, um, and me or them being the bait and whatever, right? So at 14 with the murder, uh, I became oddly interested, whatever, on the creation of pedophilia. Um, and so here we go. Memoir Origins of a Fire Starter. Chapter one: The Boy Who Drew Airplanes. Solitary confinement, 2011. It was the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. We lost power, man. I'm telling you what, being in solitary confinement with no power, that's some scary shit, right? Because they're not going to come and let you out. And if there's a fire, you're effed. Um, not peace, abstinence, absence, not quiet, void. Solitary has its own acoustics. The concrete doesn't echoes, it swallows. Even your thoughts come back muted. That's where I was when we started exchanging letters. We had a string between our doors in solitary. And so we'd each write each other questions just to, and so I started off writing questions, and I have them here, right? This is the actual letters that I collected, and the handwriting on it was, you mean you can see, right? He had pretty good penmanship. It's a little bit kind of difficult, but my sister and I were adopted into a Cuban family when I was 6. They were twins. Um, She had hair like shadows and eyes that didn't blink enough. She always looked like she was remembering something too big for her age. The house was loud music, voices, clanging pots. Telenovelas was screaming from the box TV. But there were silences too, dangerous as one, the kind that sneak in between laughter and linger like a bad smell. That's when the cousins came. Teenagers, boys who smelled like sweat and ego. They'd call me over to set me at the kitchen table with paper and pencils and told me to draw airplanes, big ones, jets, bombers. They told me to build build an air force, said I had a gift. They smiled at me like I mattered, like I was special, like this was a mission. Don't come in the other room unless you have a whole fleet. You're a soldier now. So I drew. God, I drew for hours. My hand would cramp. I'd bite the insides of my cheeks to stay focused. I thought I was being good, obedient, useful, a little man doing his things. But in the room, they were hurting her again and again. My sister, soft, sweet, silent Lila. She never told me to stop drawing. I don't remember reading the end of the letter, just the words started bleeding into one another. This was the first, and I remember reading this. My hands were shaking as they are now. My chest felt like it was caving in. There was something about the airplanes that wouldn't let me go. A little boy groomed with praise and paper talked with building imagery, machines with real destruction happened 10 feet away. That image never left me. That night in solitary, I didn't sleep. The shadows in my cell moved like memories, my own past knocking, knocking, scratching at the door. The next morning, I stared at the gray wall across from my bed and whispered how many boys were drawing, how many girls were bleeding quietly next door. That letter didn't come with answers. It came with permission. Permission to ask the wrong questions, the taboo questions, the questions that rattle locked doors and make therapists flinch. It was the first time I truly saw incest, except for my own experience, but to hear it from not just as a crime, but as a language, a family dialect, a generational virus with grammar and punctuation and pauses where love should have been. And I saw how it hides in plain sight, in praise, in paper airplanes. And so while we were in solitary, He drew these for me from memory. You don't learn to draw that to scale to memory unless you've had a lot of practice. A lot of practice. Sorry. That was the letter that started everything. When I got back out of solitaire, I started talking to the men in there, to Mike, to Peter, to Jose, to countless others. The names are forgotten. And the sad part is I can't use this information for research, right? And researchers and doctors are like, well, you're baiting these people into telling you what you want to hear. And I have their letters that they're writing to me, and all I do is ask them about their childhood. That's it. And they write and they tell me. That was the letter that started everything. When I got out, I found others, men with stories no one wanted to hear, boys who had both been victims and villains, survivors who wore shame like a second skin. Some had mothers too close, too loving, too possessive. Some mothers who had wanted nothing to do with them. That's where the pattern emerged. Mother son and incest, enmeshment, emotional and physical lines blurred so early that they never knew that the mother ended and the boy began. I wasn't hunting monsters, I was tracing trauma. And in doing so, I started remembering things that I hadn't remembered, feelings I buried, echoes from my own story I thought were just noise. Where are we at? There we go. The airplanes had always been there. I just didn't know what they meant. And so now I get letters from inmates, conversations from survivors, offenders. Some write in scrawling handwriting, unable to form sentences. Um, and they all have the same story, an incestuous family. Um, I have been looking at the mother because it seems we already focus enough on the men because we're not so covert. We're pretty damn. And what I'm discovering is if there's one incestuous person in the family, it's the entire family. There's no way to escape it. You can't ignore your five senses in a home. Um, and ignorance or turning a blind eye is just as bad, right? So if the husband's going down the hall and having sex with the daughter, there's no sounds. Think of all the senses, right? What wife doesn't know when a husband comes home from having sex with another woman? Isn't there a particular odor that comes along with that? And if he's aware of it, why is he taking a shower at 3 o'clock in the morning? See, these are questions that the mom need to start asking themselves. And so this is where I've learned it's just not the father. The mother is involved. She's just passive. Um, and I read them all and they I cry, right? I saw the pattern the world refused to name. I heard boys talk about their mothers like ex-girlfriends, read about bedtime routines that lasted too long, about bath times that never ended, about kisses on the lips, hands that wandered, boundaries that dissolved in the name of love. And they weren't blaming, not exactly. They were confused. So was I. That confusion became my compass. I wasn't just reading stories, I was piecing together a map, one that led through taboo, trauma, and truth so ugly that it looked like hearsay. I called it SOAR, Sex Offenders for Accountability, and now this Mother Made. Not because I wanted to defend them, but because I want to understand what no one want to dare to do. And understanding them, I started to understand us. Um, all right. And saw the pictures. Yep. All right. We're going to move on now to the doctor's corner. That's, there's some pretty cool letters in here. I was defending a first degree and second degree murder. I wrote to the editor. Well, so we're going to move on, like I said, to the doctor's corner. Uh, this is Dr. Miletsky, her book, Mother Sin Incest, and we're going to move on to chapter 4, and this is misconception 3: what harm can be done without a penis? Um, right. All right. Women's sexual abusers are obviously underreported. Victims and survivors are not likely to report female sex abusers, and perpetrators are not likely to turn themselves in. Society rarely suspects or questions that sexual abuse by a female may be taking place. Societal notions of female preclude the perceptions of women as sexual abusers. Hislop, 2001. Most of the estimates of the percentages of women among sex offender population typically come from child protective agencies. For women to enter these databases, someone has to report the abuse to the agency and to an individual in that agency who will actually believe the report. Unless the child is able to report the abuse independently, he had to have also reported the abuse to at least one other individual first. This individual must then believe that the child and have the willingness and ability to report the abuse. Same thing, Hislop 2001. Therefore, only the more obviously and disturbing a sexual abuse may come to the attention of the authorities. Um, and so she goes into more here. And so I part of my work and research, and this is where Tom and I really work together well, uh, researching and getting. So this is exactly what she was talking about, which is what I'm looking into. And I mean, it's some of um, one of the paragraphs. One area that has not been investigated is the possible gendered disparity and pre-screening services utilization of child sexual offenders. These services can also be geared to assist with substance abuse, trauma, mental health, and lifestyle difficulties that may be particularly relevant to the female offenders and could be influential in the case and judicial outcomes. Traditionally, research has shown that women not only engage higher levels of service utilization in general, but they're more likely to be offered services tailored to their specific needs, such as trauma and mental health, child welfare and parenting classes, and intervention housing, financial aid, and job assistance. This finding is not to suggest that gender disparities in service needs do not exist, but rather than investigation of gender differences in service utilization. Um, some researchers have suggested female sex offenders are higher likelihood to have substantial mental health issues. The focus could also be due to the overreaching belief that if a female offender are imprisoned for their crimes, their children will bear the consequences of them being left behind without a caregiver. By providing a female offenders with alternative ways of assistance, fewer children are brought into the child welfare system. Um, and so I'll be putting together some little abstracts on these and just putting together findings of what I find in here. Um, and actually that'll be part of the final book. Uh, Also, shout out to Ryan. I also wrote the man. I don't want to talk about his books without his permission. Um, so Ryan turned me on to this one. Um, it has some really interesting just views. I also then found some earlier work of his, and this one I really appreciated a little bit more. Um, but I'm just that I like uh, more of the Not so much the narrative, but the I don't know what the educational view from it. Um, so I have put out an email to him to get his permission to use his books on my. He also just put out another one. I just ordered as well. Mm, free range. I'm a chicken farmer. Free range, baby. All right. And lastly, some of the tools through the programs that I've worked that I'm going to share with you now, which one of the first things um, you got to be aware of it. So if you're listening to this, that means that you're aware. Um, so we're moving along. You're doing good. Um, second step is accepting. Um, and we humans have a real difficult time accepting things like this, and understandably why. I didn't want to accept it. At least I didn't want to accept it without some form of revenge or justice. Um, right now, I would rather take a restorative justice standpoint versus a punitive justice. And so once I got to radical acceptance is nothing other than this is what happened in black and white. Write it down and own it, right? This happened. You don't need to give explanations. You don't need to give anything other than just the sentence, this happened. And then say, then this is it, right? You radically accept that this is it, right? And so, I mean, if one of you is having a problem that your mom didn't want you, right? She didn't want you, man. It's hard to take, and it's hard. It's part of the healing process is to just recognize that was her failure, not yours. This was not something that you did. You you were put into a situation. We were just born into the wrong family, man. I don't know what to say it. That's just as that and that's why I can sit up here and smile about this, right? Is because I've radically accepted, right? My entire family for generations has been incestuous. Um, and so with those, I came to believe in a higher power. I just call it God because everyone, but it also causes all kind of negatives. It's just easier to me. It's the living energy of the universe, and the living energy is only happening at one time, and that's right now. And that's where God's at, in the living energy of right now. And so your energy, my energy, creates which stream of path that we get to be in, right? Our mind, the way we think, the way we talk. So I got to a point where I couldn't do it myself. I was recognizing that I was poisoning my own lake. And I was sitting on my own lake having no food to eat because here I was poisoning my own lake. What kind of, you know, um and it wasn't until I got into the stream of the light of loving action, did I yeah, that my world changed, and one hopefully I'll be able to share some stuff here once a while. Share your screen. Okay, there we go. I don't have it on here, but I will for next week. So, um, this is something I just wrote this week, and I wanted to share it with y'all. This is after this comes once you have experienced this loving God, um, a verb, right? It's I don't my God is not a deity in any way, shape, or form, nor is it a noun, proper or uh, whatever the hell the other one is. I'm not a mathematician. Anyway, I I digest. It's pollen season up here in the mountains of North Carolina. All right. Throwing up my hands. And so once I came to believe, I had to surrender myself to that. And that wasn't an easy process. And so I'm going to take you through my journey of surrender, of what it looked like. Right. And so I threw my hands in the air more times than I can count, but not all hand raising is the same. Surrender isn't one moment, it's a series of them. And for me, they've been three stages of surrender, each one deeper, more honest, and a little bit more freedom. First stage was apathy. Screw it, right? You just screw it, man. Just screw it. Um, I remember the first time I truly gave up, but not in a holy way. It was more like a cursing at the sky and kicking a dent in the bottom of my life. I'd lost everything, and I thought that I'd lost everything that I thought gave me value, my reputation, my relationships, and whatever thin thread I had left with God. I had no relationship with God. I mocked him. So I threw my hands up, but not like a man surrendering, like a man flipping off the universe. I said, "Screw it, nothing matters. I'm done." Uh, because it wasn't too much longer, I ended up in jail. I didn't fall to my knees in prayer. I collapsed in disgust. I wasn't surrendering to God. I was surrendering to chaos, to addiction, to the story I told myself that I was too far gone. Back then, I called it surrender, but it really was apathy wearing a Jesus mask. It was bitterness disguised as spiritual maturity. I'd confused numbness with peace. But apathy, as toxic as it is, has its purpose. It broke something in me, something that needed to break: control, pride, my obsession with being the exception to the rule. Stage two, giving up. Don't shoot. Then there's the kind of surrender that feels like the cops just busted in. Hands up, don't shoot. You're not choosing to surrender. You're just out of options. You know, that moment your wife catches you looking at porn, right? You don't really want to give up. You just got caught. I had this moment sitting in the jail cell. My whole world had collapsed, and suddenly everything got quiet. I wasn't praying for mercy. I had just hoping I could breathe without breaking. I looked up, not because I believed, but because I had nowhere else to look. I was, I remember standing on the edge of the abyss. I had been obsessing for a week, and I didn't have the moment of God clarity. I had the moment of recognizing that if I continued, there was no way back. That's a scary moment when you look over that abyss and you see the darkness look back at you. That's when I smashed my head right here. That's the horn. Um, and that was me giving up. And it's holy in its own broken way, because it was the first time I had stopped pretending and stopped performing. We stopped managing. In this stage, we start telling the truth, even if it still is scared the shit out of us. Here's the thing: giving up still counts. It's not clean, it's not poetic, but it cracks that door we swore we'd never open again. Then, stage three, true surrender. Take it all. Then one day, I wasn't just reaching for the sky, I was reaching for God, not out of fear, but out of desire, not to be rescued, but to join something bigger than me. I was standing in a circle with some other men, broken like me, tired like me, loved like me. And suddenly, in the middle of the sharing, I felt it: peace, like water rising in a dry well. My chest opened up. My finched. My fist unclenched. My arms went up like a little kid being picked up by his dad. I said it aloud. Take it, all of me. I'm done fighting you. That's the moment of true surrender. The kind that you're not just surrendering your pain, you're surrendering your plans, your need to fix it, your fear of who you are and without your pain. And I realized something. God isn't a noun. Isn't a status or a statue or a ghost sky. God's a verb. God is healing. God is restoring. God is moving. And true surrender is when I stop demanding to know where God is going to say and just say, whatever it is, fucking in. And that's why I'm here, man. I'm fucking in, man. Sunday morning talking about incest. Who wants to do that? I do, because it's so friggin' important. So here's what I know. Surrender is not waving the white flag of defeat. It's raising your hands in a sacred rebellion against the lie that you don't have to fix yourself. And once your hands are up, you realize you're free. The freedom that I get from doing this and just throwing up my hands, man, God, the living verb, man. Fill me with your spirit. Fill me. Fill us. Give us the the brave, the whatever, the strength. So, gentlemen, ladies, if you're watching, here we go. Prayer of surrender. God, not a name of control, not a statue I polish, but a verb I'm learning to trust. I've tried to run the show. I've worn every mask. I've hustled for worth, hidden my wounds, and called it survival. But I'm fucking tired, God. And in that tiredness, I'm finally willing. So here, man, take take me. Take all of me. Use all of me, my brokenness. Take my ugly pages, my fear, my plans, my fallback schemes. Take the version of me that I want to resurrect and make the pretty picture of me. I don't want to manage my life anymore. I want to live it. And with you moving through me, I want to wake up inside a life I didn't script. I want to love without needing to be impressive. I want to breathe without the fear of being seen. So I raise my hands not in defeat, but in trust, not to be punished, but to be held. I surrender not because I have to, but because I fucking want to. Because peace doesn't come from control, it comes from you, the living motion, the verb. Amen. Thank you for another day. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope some of this, any of this helped any just one person. This is why I'm doing this, just for one person. Um, and I hope that person's you.